Good evening. As you have just heard on the news, 15 people killed in the Dublin car bombs and 4 killed in Monaghan. 28 people seriously injured in Dublin and about 20 people seriously injured in Monaghan. Now at about 7:30, the Taoiseach, Mr. Cosgrave, called in his Minister for Justice and the Minister for Defence and some other senior cabinet ministers, and I understand that there will be a statement later on, perhaps before the end of the programme. With us here in the studio, a number of people who actually were on the scene of the various car bombs. And first of all, Sean Flood, I'd like to ask you what you saw, what happened.
Yes, I was just about to leave my office at 5:30. Decided, for some unusual reason, to call in to a colleague next door in another office to discuss a particular project. I was there for, I suppose, 5 or 6 minutes, and the next minute, out of the corner of my eye, I saw this massive flash. And I said, my gosh, a bomb, dive. But my colleague, unfortunately, didn't dive. He decided to look out the window and suffered facial injuries from flying glass. We then heard a lot of screaming and so on, rushed down the stairs into our showroom, saw a lot of our staff gathered there. A lot of them had suffered again from glass injuries. A number of people were carried in from the street with badly injured. My first thought was to look after the injured, which I did by calling on their first aid equipment. My second thought was to call through to our communications centre and ask for an ambulance, because we have direct link communications with the fire authorities, and also call the police. I then decided, well, what best else I could do, and I decided really to look after the injured from there on.
What was the scene like outside?
Dreadful. I've never experienced anything like it, and for one who has travelled extensively to Northern Ireland, I must say that it was something of a shock to me to see this sort of thing happening in Dublin.
Mutilation?
Mutilation. Nothing like it. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Maurice Kahn, now you were also in this same particular area, I think.
That's correct, Mr. Nealon. I arrived at the scene of the explosion about a minute after it occurred. There was an elderly man lying badly injured at the lane, the entrance to South Leinster Lane. His foot was badly mutilated and he had other severe injuries. Medical people arrived from the dental hospital in Lincoln Place, and with the assistance of other people in the immediate vicinity, he was moved to Leinster Lane to await the arrival of an ambulance. There was also the body of a young girl at the entrance to Leinster Lane, and I understand that the car bomb also fatally injured an elderly woman on the opposite side. That is the side of Trinity College of South Leinster Street.
Well, I know that you have been in Belfast working there during many of the explosions. How did the people react here?
Shock and utter confusion in my estimation. They are not used to this sort of thing happening in the Republic. The last occasion was about 18 months, 2 years ago. I would like now to appeal to the public that if such an occurrence were to take place again in the city, that they would please obey the instructions of the Garda authorities to move away from the area, not to stand under buildings where glass may be hanging dangerously, a chunk of glass, a plate glass window or whatever,
this
falling in the street.
This did happen this evening?
Well, you know, this is a typical example of the sort of injuries that can happen, and add to the pressure put on the hospitals trying to look after the more severely injured.
Fine. Well, Noel Breen and your friend Kieran Connell, you were both in the area of one of the bombs.
Yeah, we just happened to be passing the Bernie Inn when we heard the explosion, and well, we sort of stood in the spot because, being from the north, we decided it would be better to stay there rather than, because we thought that, well, maybe there's a few more explosions on the way, you know, because you can never be sure about things like this. So we stood there. So eventually, when we did decide to go up to see what was going on, the place was in utter confusion. I never saw nothing like it. Being from the north, I still never saw anything like that. We went to the Trinity College side of Nassau Street, I thought it was, but we went to the Trinity College side of it. And it was just this thing lying on the footpath, and like that completely turned us off. Like, you know, it sickened us. And well, I never saw so much confusion in my whole life. It was the same with Kieran. We were heading back then. Whenever we did decide to go back, then it seemed like there was a bomb scare, and well, the guards, they did a great job, but maybe it's because they're so unused to the thing that they just didn't know how to tackle it. There was, what we saw was one guard between the junction there of Dawson Street and Nassau Street, and he just, well, it was one guard on his own. You know, he just didn't know what to do. And it seemed that we were there, well, it seemed a lifetime to us, but we were there before, ages before an ambulance appeared, you know. Maybe it was just because they were so unused to it.
Kieran.
Yeah, well, much the same story. Came up on the scene, as Noel says, after a couple of minutes of hesitation. And, well, the first thing I noticed, of course, was the confusion among all the people. I mean, people were screaming, their faces very obviously very white. And
And the blood that really got
yeah,
us.
there was, I saw the blood, you know, the blood on the street beside a certain person, which, well, recognisable only because of the shoe, apparently a man's shoe. That's the only thing you could recognise, you know, to distinguish the sex. It was a bit much for us, you know. We didn't decide to wait about very long. We decided that
Especially with the bomb scare.
yeah, we heard the rumours of another bomb scare, so we didn't want to wait about, obviously, because of confusion. I mean, it really does put fear into you. I mean, we have experienced, not as bad, but such things, and, you know, this is really worse than anything I've ever felt.